Welcome to the Wokelandia podcast, exposing the injustice of social justice. We are the Back Home Brothers. My name is Joseph, and over there is
I'm Caleb.
he's singing.
I'm also
He's singing the
singer.
intro music, and we are actually the only podcast that I know of where we sing our own bumper music. You are welcome. And of course, it's a carnival theme because it is a carnival world, and this is a show.
And we are incredible singers.
That is Wokelandia. This is episode 2 of the Wokelandia podcast. Thank you for those of you who have made it this far with
all
us.
The way to episode 2.
We're so grateful to episode for those of you who have stuck with us to the second episode. Today, we are going to talk about the rules of Wokelandia in very specific ways, and the rules of the game of Wokelandia that we have made, but also you will see how the rules of the game parallel the rules of life in Wokelandia as we understand them. So Caleb, let's get right into this. Really the framework of the game, the goal of the game is to get 100 impression points. First person to 100 impression points wins. How you get impression points in the game is how you get impression points in life, is how you get ahead in life. Yep. And the first thing is your identity. The most important part of getting ahead in Wokelandia is having the right identity. So Caleb, we made a decision in the rules to what is the part of your identity that is most important? I'll ask it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So the part of the identity that's most important that comes first in the game is your race. And that really is the truth in life and the truth in this game. You'll see that as soon as you start the game, the first thing you have to do is pull out the race cards and separate them out, deal one to each person, turn them face over, and then see what everybody's race is. And then actually the race cards go away. You can swap identity throughout the game, except for your race card. Well, there is one exception to that just because it makes it more fun. But by and large, your race stays with you the whole game, just like it does in real life, which is weird.
And that's that. Yeah, the significance of the race card in the race you assume in the game of Wokelandia parallels the significance of race in the real world. We know that identity is fluid now, right? We know we can change our gender. We know that sexuality is a spectrum. You can be agender, bigender, gender neutral. You can also be bisexual, asexual, polyamorous, monogamous, heterosexual, all the various categories. And we understand it's axiomatic now that all of these categories are fluid. That if you feel one way or another, then you can be. The giant exception to that in the world of Wokelandia, in the world we all walk around in and buy groceries in and go to school in, is that you can change anything about yourself except for your race. And we've tried to capture that.
The Rachel Dolezal card is not played. You don't get that.
For those of you who don't know the Rachel Dolezal reference, Rachel Dolezal from our home state of Washington. She was actually the head of the NAACP in the Spokane, Washington area. It became quite a scandal when it turned out that Rachel Dolezal was born to like 2 Scandinavian people or something. Her parents were very, very white. She, in fact, was very white, but she identified as black.
She had frizzy hair, though.
Well, I think she did a lot of work to kind of like, make her hair, can you make your hair look blacker? But whatever she thought it was going to be, it was going to help her pass as a black woman. She had put a lot of effort into that. And the irony of it is, and I don't think in the world of Wokelandia, there's a great answer for the question, why would it have been celebrated if Rachel Dolezal would have come out as a man? But when she says that she's a black woman, that is unacceptable. We're not going to dwell on why that is, I don't think today, but just understand that dynamic is captured in the game. The first thing that happens in the game, you get your race card. That race carries with you throughout the course of the game. Because in Wokelandia, and you get different points based on what that is. And
so there's your race cards. You can see, they don't show up probably very well in the video. And if you're listening in audio, you can't see it at all, but you've got these different one category, but different cards, Middle Eastern, Asian, Jewish, white. And of course, there's several of the white cards. You don't want to be white if you are. It says on here, if you're white, it says sit down, shut up, and listen. That's what happens for being white. Now, if you're Hispanic, or we have that crossed out and properly have Latinx or Latinx or Latinx or however you want to pronounce it.
We still don't know how to pronounce that word, but yes.
And
there is a card.
We actually have a little fun with that because it says on the Hispanic card, it's pretty oppressive when no one can pronounce your race because it's Latinx or Latinx or Latinx or however you want to say it. And so you see how oppressed you are. Indigenous, Native, First Nations person. This title has changed many times. It wasn't one time American Indian or Native American, but it's changed to a bunch of different things. So we kind of just put all of them on the same card to try to encompass the entire thing. 3,000 years of bliss and tranquility ruined by the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. That's how we describe that category. And so you could have any one of these, and you'll probably be stuck with it for most of the game. But getting rid of that is difficult. But if you've got one that you don't like, no worries. You've got 6 other categories, and here's a couple of them right here where you can try to make up for it.
Right. And significantly in the game, each one of these racial categories, or all of the identity categories, each specific identifier carries with it a particular number of oppression points or privilege points. So obviously you are closer to the end of the game if you are an indigenous person than if you are a white person. And that carries out throughout the game. So if you get the Latinx card, you're in much closer to the goal than if you get a white card or even an Asian card.
You are. And black, of course, is plus 30 as an example. White is negative 20. Everything else is in between there.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a 50-point swing difference. Asian, of course, is a 0 because nobody cares about Asian. But that's just the way it is. But so you've got different categories for that, different points for each one. And then you get points for all the other cards that you have too. You've got 5 other identity categories.
Right. So once you get your race card, that is assigned to you at the very beginning. But then throughout the game, every single turn, you will draw a card from the identity card stack. And the other categories include gender, religion, class, politics, sexual orientation. So within gender, of course, you have the dreaded male. You also have female. You have non-binary, which is better than both male and female, of course. And then you have the highly coveted transgender card, which gives you those are rare in the game.
Hard to get.
They're very hard to get. But if you get that, you are halfway to victory by virtue of being transgender. Now, the transgender card is worth 50 points. Being white is worth negative 30 points. So a white transgender person is ahead 20, but it's not nearly as good as being, a transgender black person or something.
And something to try to know in the game is try to get that card from somebody else if they've got it. That's a good strategy.
That's gameplay strategy. Yes.
Yeah.
And so
you'll find out as you go.
So that's the identity part of the game, where you are working really hard to get the cards to compile an identity that has the most oppression points. And what we'll recognize in this is if you're in the game and you are an evangelical white male, you are going to be, way in the hole. You're going to get further and further away from where you want to be in this game. And so throughout the course of the game, you need to be working on your identity, getting the right identity.
There's another category too, but before we get to that, I want to at least mention that we said race card is the most important card, and that's why it comes up first. And it is, but actually all the categories are most important, which is weird, but that's how it works. Every time you're talking about a particular category, that's a really big deal. Class was the original category that came from Marxism. And now we've got all these other categories that have come up too, with your religion, your sexual orientation. But really, even though they're all maximally important, the most important card really is your politics card, or what might be better called a worldview card. But for the purpose of this, we called it politics. And you'll see that too, like this card here, this is the conservative card. If you get the conservative card, you can't win. It's minus 100. We deliberately set it up that way. So no matter, even if all your other categories, if you're a gay black female, I guess it would be lesbian. I don't know, unless you're trans, and is it gay or lesbian?
Yes.
Anyway, no matter what your other categories are, if you don't have the right worldview, then you can't win. That's it.
No points for it.
That is the death knell. You can be or think or say almost anything in Wokelandia ultimately, as long as you toe the party line, as long as you don't disagree.
Yeah, you can be anything as long as you have the right political affiliation, the correct ideas. You can get along.
And if you don't have that, then it doesn't matter. Even if you're gay, even if you're black, even if you're a female, even if you're a Muslim, all those things together in one is still not enough if you're not thinking properly, if the right think isn't there. And that's really reflected in the game. That's 1984 right think, I think, or anyways.
Yeah, right. Concept. Yes, that's not the term, right think.
What was it?
Speak.
I think it was right think, wasn't it? It's been a long time.
It's been a minute, but yes.
But that's so, it.
Yeah, but that point is captured in the game well. And of course, the priority is on your identity, and there's all sorts of different identities, and there's a way to get ahead.
Oh, and nothing's more fun than sticking somebody else with a conservative card. You can't get rid of it unless you stick it to somebody, and so that's a good time.
Yeah,
so just
that is that one way that you can just totally ruin your opponent's chances is by somehow getting them stuck with the conservative card. And if you do that, no amount of oppression categories are going to overcome having the wrong political perspective. And so that is captured in the game as well. But in addition to assembling the right identity that will get you closer and closer to 100 oppression points. And part of the gameplay with the identity is the fact that you can switch identities. You can steal opponents' identities that are helpful. You can force them to take identities that are not helpful. So that's part of the gameplay, the competitive nature of this. But at the same time that you are assembling the right identity, there are two other things happening in the course of the game that are going to get you closer or further away from their goal. One of those is virtue signaling. Caleb, what kind of virtue signals do we have in this?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a bunch of basic ones. I've got a coexist bumper sticker on my car. So you play this, you tell them about your coexist bumper sticker, you get 10 points for that. You can do something as simple as calling for a tax hike for somebody else. Calling for a tax hike is fine, but you don't want to do that for yourself. You're taxing the rich, or you're taxing that group or this group or something else like that. You can block and report all of your conservative friends on social media. That's good. That's 10 points.
That is a good one. My New Year's resolution was to be an anti-racist and an ally. That would be a really good virtue signal. I wished my mom a happy birthing person's day.
Happy birthing persons, not
happy birthing person. Mm-hmm. Yes. So those are all great examples.
Our mom didn't even get that. When she saw that card, she's like, I don't get it.
Our mother would not get that. Our mother would not get that.
Yeah,
and
you weren't there, I don't think, but I played it with her and she's like, what is that? Like,
yeah,
that means Mother's Day, Mom. Oh,
yes.
Okay. Birthing person.
Yes.
Day. Yeah.
It actually, I mean, I would still say it's a pretty niche market that really appreciates the virtue signal of being wished a happy birthing person's day. I think most mothers would be perplexed by that still. And that of course is a good thing. And
maybe we should have made that plus 11 instead of plus 10, just because it's so good. You're just so woke if you're doing that, but we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't deal with
the single levels.
Digits. We rounded
of how virtuous these these things are.
Right. So virtue signals, and you can acquire virtue signals over the course of every game as you drawing cards and you get them. You can play them down and get you closer to your goal. But there is a counterbalance to virtue signals in the game and in life, and that is the dreaded microaggression. And that is what happens when you do something that is offensive. And in the course of this game, you will have many chances to be offended, which is, of course, what you're hoping to do is be offended, because that has great social currency.
And it's easy to get offended because there's just so many things that are offensive. In fact, most of these examples are from the news. We didn't make
these are all real. This is like we had to use no creativity. We were just scribes coming up with all of the virtue signals and the microaggression cards.
Just write down whatever is in the news this week. And we were making changes up until the end. It was more ideas were coming in. It's like, well, maybe we have a finite number of cards that we can print. Let's replace a couple of these ones we came up with a year ago and put in some new modern ones. This one, oh, dang it, where did I just put it? But there was one that I put in that was really funny. Somebody got charged $14.92 at a restaurant for their meal. It was a corporate meal, and that's somehow they got charged that. And
what was the amount, Caleb?
$14.92, $14.92.
Well, we probably have some kids who went to public school, so we might want to explain the significance of $14.92.
Well, they complained about $14.92 because that is a triggering number for them, and they should have known better than to charge them $14.92 for something. And that's a microaggression. So we put that into the game. But $14.92, of course, was the year that Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And so Columbus was, of course, the worst person to have ever lived outside of, I don't know, Trump, or I don't know who, but maybe he's worse than Trump.
Who's worse?
He was terrible because he brought Western civilization to the West.
North America.
Or the Western civilization to the West. That's interesting. But anyway,
well, there was Western civilization.
It's just
in the western part of Europe.
Yeah, but
which got exported to North America.
It comes to the West. It comes further west. It keeps westernizing itself. Yeah, and so that happened in 1492. So just seeing the number on their bill was triggering, and they said, "I can't believe you did that. You should have known better than that. That was very terrible of you."
Do you remember if in that incident there was an apology issued?
I don't remember. I assume there certainly may have been. I don't remember if there was an apology or how good that apology would be. I mean, there's just so many of here. You denied that men can get pregnant. I can't even with your transphobia. That's
you wore a kimono without being Japanese.
Yep. That
highly offensive.
That was a real one too. And I just saw a thing. I mean, we're getting to Halloween. I don't know when people are listening to this, but it's almost Halloween right now. And I just saw a post about, like 8 costumes you should not wear because these are not for you. These are for other people who aren't you. You're not the right category. And of course, they're talking to the majority of Americans who are of European ancestry. And so these are the specific posts.
Well, I think it's not just white people who can't do non-white things. I don't think like black people can, hit pinatas. Isn't that also offensive? Or wear sombreros, right? You can't do that.
A black person shouldn't wear a sombrero. I don't know.
I believe that is also true. Yeah.
It might be, but
that would still be cultural appropriation. Or can only white people commit? Maybe this is, I
don't know.
Can only white people commit the offense of cultural appropriation?
I've never heard a complaint about a person of a oppressed minority.
Have you ever seen a black person wear a sombrero though?
I've not.
That might be why.
But maybe it's only because it wasn't complained about. So I don't know the answer to that one. That's
I don't know the answer.
Interesting. Can a black girl wear a Japanese kimono to prom and get away with it? My guess is yes.
We know white girls can't wear hoop earrings. Although I see that. Yeah, that is the origin of hoop earrings is very non-Scandinavian. And there are some people who feel deeply that white people should not, white girls, not a lot of white guys, but are looking to do that, but that white girls should not wear hoop earrings because it's cultural appropriation.
And also I heard that, well, the weird thing is braids. Of course, you've probably heard the complaint about white girls, especially having dreadlocks or braids. And
dreadlocks are, highly problematic.
But I actually heard that it's been a Scandinavian thing for hundreds of years. The Scandinavian Viking women wore their hair, and Viking men even wore their hair in braids.
Braids or dreadlocks?
I don't know.
I mean, I think they're different.
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, I mean, what the issue that this raises is the fact that actual history is not relevant. It all just depends on kind of how you feel.
Yeah, hair is not.
And once somebody tells you that they're offended by your dreadlocks or your braids, you're supposed to acknowledge that, assuming you are white. History lessons are not helpful in here too, because when you are more oppressed, then you are just in a position of listening. And actually, we should make that point as we wrap up kind of the discussion about microaggressions. One of the things built into the game is as the game goes on, you are continually accumulating or losing oppression points. And microaggressions are a big part of the game where you will have them in your card, in your hand, and you will play them on your opponent, and it will reduce their number of oppression points. Mm-hmm. However, because microaggressions are what happen when you are offended by another player in the game, you cannot be offended by somebody who has more oppression points than you.
Yeah,
and
pay
this
attention
is really
to that rule. Yeah, because people will miss that rule, but it is an important part of Wokelandia. It really bothered somebody in our focus group. He's like, I want to play it against them because that person's ahead of me, so I should be able to play a microaggression against them. But no, in Wokelandia, you can't. If they're ahead of you,
and that's everybody will immediately recognize why that is true, though, because the wealthy white Christian business owner who is one of the oppressors cannot ever express offense from a
marginalized person,
immigrant, Hispanic, Muslim, assuming that exists. I don't know how many Hispanic Muslims there are, but there have to be some. And because that person has more oppression points, you as the white Christian business owner, your job is to just shut up and listen. And the rules of Wokelandia reflect that. Even if the more oppressed person did something genuinely terrible, you do not have the right to be offended because you are one of the oppressors. So
only the oppressed can be microaggressed. Maybe that little rhyme will help you remember.
Only the oppressed can be microaggressed.
And I came up with that just now in my head. I just came up with that. That's how quick I am. Yeah,
that was good. So those are the rules. A little bit about Wokelandia. And of course, when you go to wokelandia.com, you can look at the rules. We have them posted there. When you buy the game, we have a QR code that you can scan to get a printed copy of the rules wherever it's most convenient for you. And again, I think that as you learn the rules of the game, you'll begin to learn the rules of life, not because you should learn to live by them, but because you should learn to recognize them, understanding where they're coming from, and ultimately how destructive they are is going to make your life and my life and everybody's life better once we ultimately purge ourselves of this virus.
One day.
Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next time here on the Wokelandia podcast.
See you then.